On behalf of the Zinn Education Project, I would like to welcome everyone to this orientation to the Teach Truth Day of Action that we are co-hosting with the African American Policy Forum and Black Lives Matter at School, along with dozens of co-sponsors. It's going to be our biggest year yet. My name is Jesse Hagopian. I'm on the Zinn Education Project leadership team and a Rethinking Schools editor. For the past 2 summers, teachers across the country at historic sites have rallied to speak out against anti-history education bills and to defend the rights of LGBTQ students. They've been incredible outpourings, and these teacher-led rallies received national attention and gained media awareness, providing a valuable counter-narrative to the oversized coverage of the well-funded anti-CRT movement. So in our session today, you will meet each other from all over the country who are doing incredible work. You'll meet the representatives from 2 of our co-sponsors here, also from teachers, how they have organized events in the past, and you will get resources for the day of action and consider different media strategies to make the day successful. And I love seeing all of you introducing yourselves in the chat, where you're from, who you're representing. It's really exciting to see the momentum build for our day of action. And to get us started, we are joined by Rocio Inclán, Senior Director from the NEA Center for Social Justice, will share some greetings with us. Thank you so much for being here with us. Rocio, I think your mic is muted.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Can you hear me now?
We can. Awesome.
So thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Jesse, and thank you to the Zinn Education Project for hosting all of us tonight. I am inspired by all of us joining together on this call and around the country to make this what I know will be the biggest Teach Truth Day of Action yet. We know, all of us on this call know that some decision makers are doing everything in their power to take us backward by using their dog whistle attacks based on what we look like or who we love, to keep us distracted and divided so they can hide their failures to give our kids everything they need to thrive. So instead of allowing our schools to cultivate belonging, they're banning books. Instead of encouraging critical thinking, they're censoring curriculum. And instead of funding our kids' futures, they're undermining our public schools. So as the largest labor union in the country, the National Education Association is really honored to join with all of you to make the Teach Truth Day of Action one of the highlights, one that highlights our collective strength, the strength of our communities, our diverse history, and our demands for the freedom to learn and teach truth. So we will show our power by coming together through our celebrations of honest and accurate education, beautiful and diverse books, and our freedoms. So by participating in the Day of Action, Jesse, all of us, we're not only putting our decision makers on notice that we outnumber them, but we are choosing us. We're choosing all of us across races and genders and places, no exceptions. So thank you for joining, and thank you for all the work. Back to you, Jesse.
Oh, Rocio, thank you so much. That's exactly right. I think you nailed why we're here today and what we hope to achieve. And the NEA staff have really been critical to this whole operation and this organizing effort. So thank you, Rocio, and thank you to the NEA for supporting us. And
proud to do it.
Right on. You know, we have more than 35 co-sponsors for the Teach Truth Day of Action on June 10th who are committed to helping with outreach and in other ways for your events. So we really have lots of support to make this event very powerful. And one of the co-sponsors is GLSEN. And I'd like to welcome now Michael Rady, who's a Senior Education Programs Manager at GLSEN and a founder of the Rainbow Library, to say why GLSEN signed on as a co-sponsor. So welcome, Michael. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jesse. It's good to be with you all today from around the country. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Rady. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm the Senior Education Programs Manager at GLSEN. In my breakout room, there are a lot of folks that did know about GLSEN already, but for anyone that's new to the organization, GLSEN is a multiracial, intergenerational, LGBTQ+ organization where we support schools to be LGBTQ+ inclusive, right? And part of my work is supporting a program called the Rainbow Library that sends LGBTQ+ affirming books to schools across the country for free. Right now, we are in schools where 5.4 million students across the country now have access to Rainbow Library books. And so from running this program, I've heard firsthand from educators, from school librarians about the power of affirming literature for students, thinking about the stories I've heard where, a school gets a set of our books and then the next day they're all checked out from their school library. Stories where students, don't want to return the book because they're so attached to it. And so we've heard those positive stories. And at the same time, we've heard firsthand just the harms that these book banning attempts have had on students in affirming literature, not only meaning the erasure of these stories of this history from schools, but making kids who are Black and brown, kids who are LGBTQ+ feel excluded, like they don't belong, that they shouldn't be there. And so that's why we're in this fight, and we're joining as a co-sponsor with as part of Teach Truth, and we're looking forward to hosting events, working on you all with events. I invite you all to go to glisten.org or rainbowlibrary.org to learn more about the work that our organization is doing, and also to request a set of books yourselves. And I'll pass it back to you, Jesse.
Michael, thank you so much. And thank you to all of GLSEN for joining in on helping organize this National Day of Action. I mean, the right is trying to divide and conquer. They're trying to turn us against each other. And the only chance that we stand to win is uniting across differences and across different intersections of oppression. And so I just know that this is the key to our victory, is linking the struggle against homophobia and transphobia with the fight against racism. And I really appreciate the efforts you all are making towards that. Deborah?
Thank you. Yes, and I'd like to join in also thanking Michael for making the time and joining us and sharing. You'll see in the resource package you're going to get, GLSEN has posters, lawn signs, window signs, t-shirts, buttons that, oh, there we go. Yeah, hold it up so we can all see. It's in the, well, it'll also link it there so it's not fuzzy, but it's, yeah, these are great resources. So thank you again, Michael, for joining us and for all the work you're doing. And some of the sites are also, all the sites will unite the issues, but some are having a particular focus. For example, a site in New York is going to have a teach-in on LGBTQ history at Stonewall Inn. So we'll keep people posted of all the events. So speaking of events, we're going to now look at some examples of what organizations can do and think about, because there's really a range of activities that you can do. And you will have a resource packet where I think we're dropping in the chat some resources that you can choose from. And you can choose to do one of the activities that people have done in the past. For example, we'll look at one of the easiest things and fun things to do is to make a photo frame. And so you could have at this it was actually in front of a public library in Maryland. They made what they called a photo booth, and people could take photos with a book that had been banned. So that's one example. I think we have another frame. You can bring art work so people can make their own signs at an event. Or if we look at the next one, the package you're going to get has a frame that you can take to a printer, print out, and then cut out and make a photo frame. As you can see, the person is holding. So you can make your own or get a pre-printed one like the one there. But there's also a lot of resources and strategies we can learn from teachers who've done these events in the past. And so I think we're going to take, if we can get to the next slide, we're going to learn about some of those activities, and we have some folks with us here who are going to share, and I'm going to, we'll just bring up some of them here. Let's see if we've got Julia is going to join us, and actually going to, yes, so we can get, we're going to go quickly through a round of 6 folks who have either planned events in the past or one who's planning one now. We're going to share what they've done, like a minute each, just so you can get ideas. And as you're listening, think of you might do something similar or modify that. And so, Julia, if you could talk about what you did in Utah last year.
Yeah, hello. So yeah, I'm residing in the ancestral lands of Eastern Shoshone, Ute, and Goshute, known as Utah. And last year I submitted a request to an already existing event on the Day of Action, a soil collection ceremony at lynching sites in Salt Lake City. And after the Equal Justice Initiative and the Semahaditi Foundation unanimously agreed to make it a Teach Truth event, we added it to the national listings, promoted it to local educators, and I brought signs to the event. Black, Latinx, and LGBTQ+ history and stories were lacking severely in my K-12 education, and that's one of the main reasons I'm committed to supporting the Teach Truth campaign.
Great, thank you so much, Julia. And Julia is also on staff with the Zinn Education Project, so you'll be hearing from her as you're getting support for your activities this year. Thank you. Next up is Sally Stanhope, who was in Georgia. Sally, can you tell us what you did?
So Georgia has the largest Confederate monument in the world. And so at the park, they do not mention enslavement. They don't mention why that the monument was created in opposition to Brown v. Board. And so what I did is I gave a truth-telling walk that pointed out the true history of the different parts of the mountain. And we carried signs. It was long, it was about 3 miles. So we carried signs the whole time and engaged with people who are walking around the mountain. And it was 20 people, but the best part about it is the people who I met, I formed long-term relationships with. And one, I'm putting on a summer program for kids to investigate the relationship between Stone Mountain Park and the historically Black community. And so it really was this moment that I got to meet like-minded people and really expand the people fighting for this cause. And because we want to change the history that's being told in the state park.
Thank you so much. And if anyone's anywhere near Atlanta, I think Sally's doing that again this year. So that's on the information's on the calendar. You can contact her. Thanks so much, Sally. Next up is Eddie Walsh. Who's going to talk about what he and fellow teachers did in Memphis.
Hey, also similar to Sally, we did a history walk in June of the 2021 Day of Action. We started at our school site, which is the same site where Nathan Bedford Forrest owned a home and a slave market. We collaborated with the NAACP in town, local church leaders, and other educators through Teach for America and MTR. We started at that site. We spoke about how the proposed bill would impact how we taught that past. We walked to the site of the first Freeman schools in Memphis and had a similar discussion with a different speaker. We went to the site of the Memphis massacre. And again, we had you see there on the left, that's Van Turner. He's a Memphis mayor candidate now, speak with us. And then we closed out in that picture on the right at the National Civil Rights Museum and had students speak about how their study of the past would be impacted by the limitations. And unfortunately that bill did pass, but we had a lot of support. A lot of people came out and we're open to looking to doing it again.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, the sort of educational tour. People are learning more about the history that they're trying to ban and that we need to protect. Thank you. Next up, we have Vanessa Williams from Washington, D.C., the colony of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, make sure you name that. Thank you, Deborah. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the program manager for DC Area Educators for Social Justice. I've helped organize at least the most recent, back in 2022, our Day of Action event at the African American Civil War Memorial. We have it there. Sorry, I'm seeing Keisha's comment. We have it there because of the really powerful history of the founding of the museum itself, but also just a history that exists with that particular site. And it's so physically proximate to a lot of other really great historical spots in the DC area, but that's history, we all know that. So, but beyond that, we also have teachers that MC the event. It's usually about an hour or two, where again, educators are usually, or they have been the leading force in facilitating the event. And they're also the ones that are giving their pledges. Anybody, of course, is welcome to say their pledge, their pledges, and educators at the center and are the driving force behind it. And we want them to be the most vocal. So have it at that important spot with teachers that are facilitating it all and having their voices amplified quite literally and metaphorically.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. And when people are doing outreach, what I'm going to suggest is that a historic site could also host the event. So
Yes.
they could do the work of organizing it, hosting it, and then have a platform for teachers to come up and speak and talk about what they're facing. So thank you so much and we were, in this case, I think, collaborated with, right, the African-American, the founder of the African-American Civil War Memorial, who's also a voting rights activist. So
Yes.
thank you so much. Okay, and now we're going to hear from Lindsay Pava in Providence. Talk about a different version of an activity.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Paiva. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a third grade ESL teacher in Providence. Something we decided to do last year, we've done a couple of different iterations over the past couple of years, but we partnered with an event that was already happening. So in Providence, typically in June, there's a huge music and arts festival downtown, and there are tons of people from all across the state and elsewhere who come. And so we wanted to be in a space where there were already going to be a lot of people. So we were able to finagle a table. We went through the Providence Public Library and they allowed us to pretty much share their space. And so we set up a tent. We had testimony that we had gathered and printed. You can see in the picture. We had printed it really big. That was from students and teachers. We had a photo booth set up, and then we had folks just walking around with clipboards. We had a QR code that went to a petition and a link to join our listserv. We're creating kind of a coalition in Rhode Island. It's small enough. So, and then we also had info on legislation that has been proposed multiple years in Rhode Island. And it was a way for us to sort of get people where they were already there, they were already having a good time, and just have a check-in with them in a way that didn't feel, it felt relaxed. The other piece was that we partnered with Beyond the Stacks, which was a mobile social justice library. So folks were able to take out books, and we talked about book banning, and that was that. So definitely think of places where people already will be.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that story. Great. And now we're going to hear from Chanel Hurt, who's in Richmond and is also with us as a co-sponsor. Chanel works with the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action, but is here going to talk about the action she's planning this year locally.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Chanel. I use any and all pronouns, and I'm coming from Virginia, Powhatan land and Richmond. I'll be hosting a band book swap or trade at the historical site. Come with a book, leave with a book. Folks will come to talk to each other about the band book that they chose to trade or share. We'll take some time to display them, and then folks can select their trade. But fingers crossed for this ground. It's the Sacred African Burial Ground in Richmond, and it's been a Sunoco gas station. It's been a parking lot for Virginia Commonwealth University, a history that was literally paved over. So I thought it was a fitting location, considering the grounds and the current attacks on truthful education that want us to erase those histories. It's my first time organizing an event outside of being in the union or something. So I'm glad to be home in Richmond during this time. I reached out to their email contact online. It took a few days and I was getting a little antsy. So I ended up following up with them with the phone number they had on their website. it's a busy weekend with Juneteenth the following next week, but they were very flexible and wanted to learn more about the project and really wanted to work with me to make it happen. And thankfully, they're helping with the additional things that need to be done with the city as well. And one of the things the person said on the phone call was like, this ground is for everyone. So that felt really fitting and felt very comfortable with them. In my case, I'm solidifying a time and a location and then inviting folks. Capacity has been low around me, so trying to make it easy for people to join. Meanwhile, telling a lot of people, so I have people to hold me accountable. But I'm, looking forward to working with others to bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. And we will also, through all of this, be sharing information about the work of Black Lives Matter at school, along with APF, or two of the other co-hosts for this day of action. And then as Jesse mentioned earlier, when Rocio spoke, we have many co-sponsors, but we've been particularly engaged with and supported by the work of the National Education Association. And in fact, they are the ones who suggested putting together this little collection of resources that, being dropped in the chat, we will continue to add links to key resources so that you only have one place you need to go look to find the media guide, to find the announcement where we'll continue to add more sites in the map. There's also a mini banned books pop-up display that you can make if you are at a stationary site, like Lindsay mentioned, they had in Providence. There are graphics, and if we go to the next slide, we'll see NEA has produced graphics for this event, and you can download them. There's a whole collection. This is one of them. If you check in the on that guide and also in the chat, there should be a link for many gorgeous graphics that you can download and make posters, print them and carry them at your event, put them in your windows, and ask other organizations to display them. If there's a local historic site near you, a bookstore, print out the posters and ask them to act in solidarity. And we have, in addition to the folks from NEA, in addition to Julia, who you've met, we also are working with an organizer who is also on the steering committee of Black Lives Matter at School, Tamara Anderson.
In this next breakout session, how might you respond to the following questions? Shouldn't we keep politics out of public education and prohibit teachers from indoctrinating students with their personal views? Or is the movement for anti-racist education opposed to parents' rights? That's a big one that's been coming up recently. And then what other questions do you anticipate that journalists and community members might have, and how might you answer them? All right, so these are the questions that you can work on in your breakout. We'd love to hear in the chat how those conversations went, and particularly if there was a challenge that came up, something that you weren't sure how to answer, or something that you have an answer but you want to refine it and get more insights on how you might answer that if a reporter asked you. I think beginning with questions about the media would be great. And also there's some people who had tips for how to talk to the media, and you can drop those in the chat too. So there's a question: how does one determine who should be the person speaking to the media? Usually it's everyone says they don't want to do it, and it's who's ever left who's willing to do it in the group. Is how I've seen it done a lot. But I think that having somebody who's engaged with this issue, if you have a classroom teacher who can speak from experience, I mean, there's so much credibility there of here's what they don't want me to teach, and this is true about Black history, and I'm gonna, I have a right to teach this. It's really powerful to have or a parent that says they want their kids to be able to learn the truth. But if somebody has some experience with it, that definitely helps, but there's no way to get experience other than to just jump in and do it. And we have the media training guide that we can send to you all, and we have the session coming up, and it's worth giving it a shot. What other questions are coming up here? Yeah, I love if the questions are leading, one pro tip is to avoid leading with or repeating the negative. So isn't CRT indoctrinating kids could be a question that you get. And instead of saying CRT is not indoctrinating kids, now you've just repeated their talking point, right? And so staying away from that is critical, and instead say anti-racist teachers are teaching kids the truth about Black history, right? And just lead with what you know to be true and what you want to say, not just reacting to their question. I think that's such an important point. All right. Are there other questions I missed? Leading with core values. Yeah, that we want a democratic society, and we can't get there when people are deceived about our history and how we got to the point we're at. That's something that's fairly universal. And I think starting with that idea can be really powerful. Great ideas so far. If people have other ideas for things that we need to talk about in the upcoming media session, please drop those in the chat.
I was just going to say that we have two people here who also can help with media during the next couple of weeks. Is it okay if we just bring them up really quickly?
Oh yeah, please.
And I hope they don't mind, but we're just going to bring up Shilpa Reddy, who is with the, if she could start her video, we could bring up, and then also Carrie Ann Hamilton is here from working with, it was also, we need to have her start her camera, but if we could, here we go. If you could just say a quick hi, because, and just say which group you work with. I think you might be able to help some of the sites with media, is that right?
Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
It's been an honor to be here and to listen in on this really inspiring day of action that's coming up in a month, exactly a month. We have the great fortune, we're a social impact communications consulting practice in Washington, DC. We help mission-driven organizations and individuals tell their stories. And so we work with the Hewlett Foundation, who has put us in touch with Deborah and team. And so we're honored to support the media training, Jesse, and support teams across the country and NEA as well in terms of outreach and preparation ahead of the Day of Action. So again, great, just gratitude all around, and thank you for all that you're doing in your respective communities.
Great, thank you so much. And Shilpa, if you just want to quickly introduce yourself, because over the next month, over the next days and weeks, you'll be hearing from all of us. Shilpa, if you want to say hi.
Sure. Hi, it's good to see everyone today. My name is Shilpa Reddy, and along with my colleague Stephanie Luongo at the National Education Association, we are helping with this work from the Center for Racial and Social Justice. And as Jesse had mentioned, our colleague Miguel Gonzalez will be leading with Jesse the media training that's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, Deborah has collected so many great resources, including some of the resources that we have been able to contribute around some messaging and how to engage some, folks around different events and actions and social media and digital toolkits. Some people's day of action might just be they and their family, taking a walks at a park with the frames that they make around Teach Truth, and just posting those to social media with the hashtag freedom to learn and teach truth. And that in of itself is an action, and is something that tells you and your community and your social network that you are a part of this. And we just want to stress that no matter how big or small these events are, they are events and actions, and it is growing this movement. And so we'll be around with Carrie Ann and others as we have, if folks have questions that come through Deborah or Jesse that we can be helpful on, and then just getting resources out to folks. And then the last thing I'll say is we want to tell this story after June 10th, because this is not all going to be ending at June 10th. Obviously, we know this. We've been doing this for several years. So you know, as Deborah and Jesse figure out how to collect stories from folks and photos and things like that, we want to be able to uplift those stories to inspire folks beyond June, because we're going into the summer, we're going back into, you know, we're going to be in an election season next year. We're going to be going back to school, and folks are still going to be facing a lot of these issues. And we want to tell the stories of the uplifting and inspiring stories that that people aren't alone, whether you're in Iowa City or Washington, D.C. or Memphis, Tennessee, that people are in communities and are in community doing this work. So thank you, Deborah and Jesse and your whole team for working on this. And we really are excited about being a part of it. Thanks.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work and bringing in so many partners. And just a big thank you to everybody who came here this evening and are devoting your time and committing to do this work. Yeah.
No, it's so good to be with you all. And Shilpa, thank you for giving us those words. I just want to thank everyone for helping build this day of action. I think that we need to think about this in historical perspective. You know, we're at a crossroads in American education, much like when Black people built the public school system during Reconstruction in the first place, or when the Civil Rights Movement launched the freedom schools, when integration wasn't happening in the school system, or when the fight for ethnic studies broke out on college campuses and there were student strikes that finally broke through Eurocentric history courses and were able to add Black history and Indigenous history courses, right? We're at one of those moments where we can either break through and dramatically expand access to historical knowledge and education for all of the students, or we can retreat into a period that looks like the McCarthy era, where educators are scapegoated and fired by the thousands. And that really depends upon whether we all build this struggle, right? And so it's a real honor to be in this movement with you. And I can't wait to see what happens on this day of action and to support you moving forward.